Welcome to the Pandemonium Witches podcast, where the ADHD has just a touch of the tism, where the true crime is just as scary as the hauntings and unsolved cases, and the hosts never stay on topic for long. I'm Kat.
I'm Rachel.
Now on to the show. Oh, hello.
Hello.
Oh. I think I can hear you. Hold on.
Is that better?
Oh, a lot better. Hello,
Okay.
Dakota.
Cat says hi.
Oh, happy birthday, you amazing bitch.
Oh, thanks.
Josh
It's
was
been a
like,
long fucking year.
I know, it's been a long fucking year. Josh was like, are you sure she wants to record? And I was like, yeah. She's very adamant.
Otherwise.
I know. So, he got you a sheet pan cake.
Oh, yeah. I'm like a sheet pan. No, we did not. A cake, yes.
It's a pan where you sheet. By the way, I learned something new about that sleep aid medication this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take 4.
Oh, no. Were you dead to the world?
Huh?
I said, we're... Oh.
What, baby? I'm getting to it. She's asking me questions. He's like, why is that? Well, I'm getting there, asshole. Jesus Christ. So, we're laying down. We're going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
I take the meds. And, I wake up apparently in the middle of the night. I know. And, it's because the bed was shaking. I could feel my heart beating into the bed.
Oh, no.
So I was having one of those out-of-body, otherworldly experiences. Listen, I love sleep aid because it's the only thing that gets me to sleep.
But not that many.
Don't take 4. I mean, I was like, I normally take 3. So what's the pain in taking? There's a lot of pain in taking 4.
Yeah.
And I love your nails.
Thanks.
They're so pointy.
Yes.
And they just stab.
Yes, but it makes typing a little hard.
I can tell. I thought I was
Especially
having...
especially on the laptops. Like desktop, there's a little bit more space between the two keys.
Right. Not so
Laptop,
much.
not so much.
Yeah. So, are you guys doing anything special this weekend, or you just hanging out?
We've mostly been hanging out. We're going to dinner tonight.
Oh, very nice.
Yes. He got me a coloring book, one of those blank ones that you have to color by the number.
Yes. I love that.
But you don't know what the picture is going to be. Yes. And then, he got me Lego orchids.
Oh, he got you flowers that never die.
Yes. That's what he's been doing. He's been getting me flowers. Lego flowers. Because there's no upkeep to them, so it's perfect.
Why doesn't my husband do something like that? I mean, my husband bought me a video game, so that's fine. So do you have anything planned to do
I
today?
do not.
Okay.
I started working on something, but with the nails, it's a little hard.
No. It's totally fine. I have something you're going to hate me for, but I have something.
I mean, if it's a serial killer, then I always end up hating you for it. But...
Yeah, it is. So, but it's British. It's from over yonder. It's from over the pond. Let me just... I'm not looking at porn, Catherine. I had my...
I mean, what you do on your own free time is on you. But
no, I had my notes open for the book, and I was trying to write how a throuple of 3 men would have sex, and I had to actually research it. Let me tell you some of the pop-ups that pop up after you look for that kind of stuff.
I bet.
was,
Interesting.
to say the least, you know. Yeah, I should have done it in a private browser. Anyways,
We live and learn.
we live and learn. So, mm, so,
We could talk about that tomorrow because I have to be at work at 7, so
oh, oh yeah, we can talk about that tomorrow. And husband,
I have a whole drive.
hold on, gotta move these. Listen, my hair is coming out in ways I don't like, and it's short. She put layers in, and I just wanted it all one length.
Hmm.
And she's like, well, this will make it thicker. I don't care if it's thicker. I want it one whole cohesive length, not 6 different.
And now we have to grow it out.
This is a Pandemonium Witches podcast trigger warning. The following episode contains graphic violence and gruesome depictions. Listener discretion is advised. So, our murderer today, we've had some fucked up family jokes between the two, well, between all 4 of us, to be honest.
Yeah.
Mine is my dad's head injury. He says that everything smells like daisies because he can't smell. And after he got COVID twice, he can now smell out of one side of his nostril. It's kind of funny. Yeah, no, I know. Because when he had his head injury, his TBI, he lost his sense of smell and half of his sense of taste on the left side of his tongue. Which,
yeah,
okay. Or how he walks bow-legged from when he climbed the fence in our backyard to trim the lemon tree. But let's not get into that. This family joke went a little too far. So it started as a joke.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, you know it's bad.
Oh yes.
Okay, so this is for the family called the Wests. I know one person's gonna hear this and go, yes! So, they are...
This name was requested?
It was requested. We're not talking about Debbie Mae West, Dominic West, Timothy West, or Kanye. But today we're talking about a different murderous duo by the name of Fred and Rose West.
Okay. So
instead, we're going to call them the Flintstones.
That works.
I mean, you know, my seat keeps going down. So let's go across the pond, take a train, and talk about Britain's most infamous crimes that has a sick family joke about someone buried under their patio.
Why is it always the patios?
Well, he did some construction work. Why is it always construction workers? Yeah, I know.
That's what I was about to say next.
I know. It's an ongoing thing. We've had like 4 that's worked construction now.
4 too many.
4 too many. So, too long didn't read. Frank committed at least 12 murders in between 67 and 87 in Gloucester. The majority with his second wife, Rose West. Rose with the West, but Rose was arrested, tried, and convicted in the torture and subsequent murder of at least 9 young women in between 73 and 87. She also murdered her 8-year-old stepdaughter, Charmaine, in 71. Yeah, I know.
I just also looked them up. They're not.
No, I was going to send you some photos. They're not pretty.
No, they're not easy on the eyes at all.
Not like, you know, I mean, Emily was talking about the Ken and Barbie killers on our first episode. They're very beautiful. Very, very pretty looking. These, they weren't even conventionally pretty.
She, maybe with, a different haircut and some different glasses, she actually, wouldn't look that bad.
Right.
Him, on the other hand, there's no help for that.
Well, here's the thing, is that the original photo from him, let me just copy this photo. He looks like that one actor from BBC. Can't remember his name. He had done like a ton of work on the BBC, but he looks just like him. And
Okay.
I thought it was him for a while, and I was like, oh, it's not. Okay, so the majority of these murders took place at the residence of the family in Gloucester. But as you know us, we start at the beginning, call these two by horrible names. So originally, I think I'm still going to go with that. Fred is now Funk, and Rose is called Thorn. Funk and Thorn. Or fucking horn. Anyways, so Funk was born on September 29th, 1941 at Bickerton Cottage, Muchmarkle, Herefordshire, which I did talk to my friend over the pond, over yonder, a while ago when I started researching this. He probably won't remember. Hello, Baz. Um, he's like, yeah, that's way the fuck in the middle of nowhere. I was like, oh,
Yep.
okay. All right. At first, as the first surviving child of Walter Stephen West and Daisy Hannah Hill, Funk was from a poor family of farm workers, close-knit and mutually protective. His father was a disciplinarian and his mother was overprotective. In 46, at the age of 5, the family moved from Moorcourt Cottage, a semi-detached building attached to the Moorcourt farm on the outskirts of Muchmarkle, where Funk's papa worked as a milking herdsman and a harvest hand. They were completely off-grid. So he knew how to live off, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cottage had no electricity and it was heated by a log fire. So, of course, you're probably like, well, he's got to have a bunch of brothers and sisters, right? Mm-hmm.
No. Oh, they did.
Yeah, because they lived in the middle of nowhere on a farm.
There was nothing else for the parents to do.
Yep. So by 51, Funk's mama gave birth to a total of 8 children, 6 of whom survived, 2 of which perished. The children were expected to perform assigned chores, and all 6 did seasonal work, the 3 girls picking hops and berries. Their 3 boys were harvesting wheat and hunting rabbits. It was a necessity for working to earn a living to survive, and it instilled work ethic in Funk, which also gave him a lifelong habit to petty theft. But unfortunately, Funk was always Mama's favorite, so he could do no wrong. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Always the mama's voice.
Yep, so he was seen as Mama's boys and relied mostly on his siblings for companionship. You're gonna hate that in a minute. Classmates
Of
recall
course.
Funk as scruffy, dim, lethargic, and always in trouble. Throughout his life, he remained barely literate. He couldn't read. Is he asleep? He displayed an aptitude for woodwork and artwork. He left school December of 56 at the age of 15 as he began working as a laborer at the farm in Moorcourt.
Which is about the right age
Mm-hmm.
for
12 to 15.
50s. Yeah.
Yeah. Funk later claimed that he had been sexually abused by his mama starting at the age of 12 and that he engaged in acts of bestiality starting in his early teens. That's why I said you're going to hate me in a minute.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. It was his belief that incest was normal and stemmed from his father's incest with his sisters.
That doesn't make it normal.
No. His younger brother, Doug, dismissed these claims as fantasy-based and that they were all completely untrue and none of the siblings were touched.
Well, that he knew of.
Right. So, year
It's
50.
not like that's something they would be
Advertising?
doing out in the open every single day.
No, God, no. Um,
At least I hope not.
I mean, listen, there wasn't a lot of detail there. I went to a couple of different websites like we do.
Of course, because we cross fact check.
I had to take a Mucinex this morning.
Ew.
Ugh. You don't want to know. It's bad. I woke up yesterday and was like, oh. I sounded like my mother. Anyways, so at 16, 1957, Funk and his brother John frequently socialized at a youth club in Ledbury. So during the 50s and 60s, youth clubs were kind of like a huge thing before the Y came about.
Yeah.
So the Y was normally popular in like larger locales like New
Mm-hmm.
York and,
It
Texas
was,
and
it
LA.
was also much more a U.S. based thing than
Right,
over there.
right. So overseas, they had youth clubs. So, I mean, they had the 4-H program, obviously, but youth clubs. So his accent was different than normal British, than people are used to.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've seen Fight Club.
Yes.
So that deep sort of, oh, yeah, that sort of accent where it's all the words scooped together
Mm-hmm.
is known as Herefordshire accent. And they're called
Yes.
country bumpkins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this didn't turn out. I'm sorry. Hold on. Every time I have to cough, I just want to make sure I'm not going to puke. No, I am not. I know I'm
I
not.
just figured it was because of the sinus drainage.
Oh, yeah, that too. Every time I cough. Yeah. So he aggressively pestered women and girls who he objectified as sources of pleasure to be used as he saw fit, and he would abruptly approach and fondle them. When a girl accepted his advances, he would find sexual performance unsatisfying,
Of course.
and he only liked it when they fought back.
Oh, there's so many things wrong with that.
I know. So at 17, a year later in 58, Fred suffered a fractured skull, a broken arm, and a broken leg in a motorcycle accident.
Too bad it didn't kill him ahead of his game,
It could have. It could have.
but it didn't.
No.
And unfortunately, lives were lost because of it.
Right. So let me see if that works. Yeah. I was hearing a lot of backfeed. I just turned Dodge on mine.
Ah,
Yeah. No, it's okay. Yeah, I'll leave that. So he was unconscious for 7 days and walked with braces for several months. But because of this incident, he developed an extreme fear of hospitals and became known to have fits of rage regarding doctors.
oh, okay then.
2 years later, in 1960, Fred suffered another head injury when a girl he groped on a fire escape outside the Ledbury Youth Club punched him, sending him tumbling down 2 floors.
Should have hit him a little bit harder.
Right. So in June of 61, Funk was 18. His little sister Kitty was 13 at the time. Told her mother that he had been raping her since the previous December and she was pregnant.
Oh no.
Yeah. So he was arrested and admitted to the police that he had been molesting young girls since his early teens and asked, point blank, but doesn't everyone do it?
No, nobody else does that.
Hmm. That's not normal. So he was tried November 9th at the Herefordshire Assize. Although disgusted by her son's actions, his mother had been prepared to testify in his defense. Immediately prior to her scheduled testimony, Kitty changed her mind and refused to testify, and the case was dismissed.
If only she had went ahead and testified.
Then he probably would have gotten in jail, yeah. But she didn't. So most of Funk's family disowned him, and his mother banished him from the household, saying he couldn't stay there anymore.
Good.
So then he moved into the Much Markle house with his Aunt Violet. By 62, he had reconciled with his parents, but not the rest of his family.
Of course not.
This is when he married his first wife. So he's still freshly turned into an adult. He became reacquainted with one of his friends, Catherine Reina Bernadette Costello, September 62, when he was 21. So when he first met his wife, who came from Coatbridge, Lanarkshire, a lot of shires, I noticed,
Mm-hmm.
at Much Markle Dance Hall in 60 and dated her for several months before she returned to Scotland. Um, she became pregnant by an Asian bus driver at the time of her marriage to Funk and may have relocated from Glasgow to England due to the members of her family expressing displeasure at her being pregnant by, direct quote from an actual newspaper in the 60s and 70s, a mixed-raced child. That would make me dirty.
People were so racist then.
Yeah, people were super racist, and I don't like it. So she married Funk in Ledbury, November 17th, the sole guest being good old brother John.
Mhm.
The couple initially lived in Funk's aunt's house and then moved to Coatbridge, where Fred worked as an ice cream van driver.
Interesting.
Rena's daughter Charmaine was born March of 63. To explain the child's mixed ancestry, Rena and Funk claim that she suffered a miscarriage and that Charmaine was adopted.
I mean, whatever works.
Right. Shortly thereafter, the couple relocated to Savoy Street in the Bridgeton district of Glasgow. Been to Savoy. It's very busy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, 64, July, Rena and Funk have another daughter named Anna Marie. The child was born at their actual house, not the hospital. The family nanny, Issa McNeil, and the neighbors of the Wests recall Rena as considerate mother struggling to bring up two children. Funk treated the children harshly, as most of these assholes do.
Mm-hmm.
He kept the girls in the bottom of a bunk bed with bars fitted to the space between the bunks, caging them, and they were only allowed out when he was at work and not at home.
What the fuck?
Oh, yeah.
Just father of the year right there.
Oh, it gets worse.
Of course it does. It always gets worse.
Through Isa, they became acquainted with her friend, 16-year-old Anne McFall, who is despondent over the death of her boyfriend in a workplace accident. So Anne spent a lot of time with the family.
Mm.
Funk later admitted to having engaged in numerous affairs in the early years of his marriage and fathered one illegitimate child with a woman from Gorbals, out in the middle of the country.
Of course.
When Rena discovered her husband's infidelity, she began an affair with a man named John McLaughlin. And
Okay.
just to let you know, McLaughlin overseas is kind of like Smith here. On one occasion, Funk discovered them canoodling. He punched Rena, making her scream. In response, John punched Funk, who drew a knife, grazed his abdomen, and when punched by John a second time, Funk stopped defending himself. But,
Interesting.
but years later, John recollected the incident. He couldn't tackle a man, but he wasn't slow in attacking women.
Well, there's that.
Well, John and Rena continued their affair, and John became increasingly upset at Rena's bruises and black eyes that she was getting from Funk.
Yeah.
On each occasion, it became apparent that Funk was beating his wife. John extensively decided to beat Funk. Like you.
Like one does.
Mm-hmm. In another instance, John witnessed Charmaine. At this point, she was a little older than a toddler. She was around 4, maybe 3. Asked Funk for ice cream from his van. In response, Funk struck her across the head, which caused another beating from John.
What the hell?
My note was, good man, taking out the trash.
Right.
You should have set him on fire. So, November 4th, 65, Funk accidentally ran over and killed a small boy in Glasgow with his van. Now, this was before all ice cream trucks had their speedometer set at 25.
Yes.
He was cleared of any wrongdoing by police, but feared the hostile reaction of potential reprisals from the incident from the locals, upon whom he was relied to make his living. In December, he returned to Gloucester with Charmaine and Anna Marie, renting a caravan at the Timberland Caravan Park in Bishop's Cleeve. Rena joined him later in February of 66, accompanied by Isa and Anne, who also moved into the caravan. Isa and Anne were both desolate. They were both poor.
Yeah.
So they both hoped to find work in central England, which is where they were going. Shortly after the move, Funk found employment driving a lorry for a local abattoir. By early 66, Funk had began to exhibit dominance and control over all three women who were residing in his household.
Of course he did.
So he was also prone to violent mood swings, and Rena and Isa typically bore the brunt of his fury. Funk also physically attacked his stepdaughter on more than one occasion. Again, after John, you know.
Right.
He also reported having begun sexually abusing Charmaine and to have encouraged Rena to turn to prostitution to supplement his income, as he could no longer provide as much as he did before.
Mm.
To escape Funk's domestic abuse and increasingly sadistic sexual demands, Rena phoned John, begging him to rescue her and Isa as well as her children. So they devised a plan, as most people do, to get out of these situations. So he and Isa's boyfriend, John Trotter, would secretly drive to Bishop's Cleeve in John's Mini and discreetly take Rena and her children and Isa back to Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
But Anne, by this point, Isa's friend,
Yeah.
she became obsessed with Funk. Because he had promised to marry her because he was abusing her.
Mm-hmm.
So it was likely that she turned on them and told Funk of their plan.
Because of course.
Because he had arrived at the meeting time that John and John were showing up. And she was eerily calm, it was noted. So she told Isa that she decided to stay and wanted to work as the children's nanny. An altercation happened between Funk and John number one, resulting in Funk being struck several times as he clutched onto Charmaine and Anne Marie. Police were called, and both Johns, Isa and Rena, left, with Fred threatening to kill Rena should he ever see her again.
Of course.
So, to ensure her daughter's well-being, Rena traveled to England a lot to visit Charmaine and Anna Marie while they lived with Funk at Bishop's Cleeve. Despite keeping her friendship with Anne at the beginning, Rena soon began to resent her presence around her daughters, because it became like that horrible, wicked stepmother situation.
Because of course it did.
Mm-hmm. So, October 11th, as an act of resentment, Rena stole some belongings from Funk's caravan and returned to Glasgow.
Mm.
She was arrested the following month and returned to Gloucester to face trial. And on November 29th, Rena was sentenced to 3 years probation. Funk testified at her hearing, admitted he and Anne were living together, but falsely claiming Anne intended to return to Scotland imminently. After the trial, Anne moved into a caravan at Timberland Park. Rena alternated between living with Fred and returning to Glasgow. Letters Anne posted to her family and the McNeils in Glasgow between 66 and 67 indicated that she believed a relationship with Funk could offer her a better life than she had experienced previously in Scotland. She tried to persuade Funk to divorce his wife and marry her instead.
That never works.
Nope. So this is where you're going to start hating me.
Mm.
I know before it was terrible, but this is worse. So, July of 67, Anne McFall was 18 and was 8 months pregnant with his child.
Of course she was.
She was never seen or heard from again.
Because that tracks.
She was never reported missing, but her dismembered remains were found buried at the edge of the cornfield between Muchmarcle and Kempley, June of 94. Shall I describe?
Keep going.
Her limbs have been carefully disarticulated and many of her finger bones, or phalanges, were missing from her body, likely to be retained as keepsakes.
Thanks, I hate it.
You're welcome. Her unborn child must have been cut from her womb because it wasn't there.
But it must have been cut. Like there would have been evidence if he had
Hmm.
cut the child out.
Yeah, but her body was so disfigured they couldn't tell.
Mm.
But there was no actual body of the child, so they're assuming she had either given birth or it had been cut out. Funk initially denied that he had killed Anne, but confided to one visitor following his arrest that he had stabbed her to death following a disagreement.
Mm.
This explanation is consistent with the fact that her wrists were found with sections of dressing gown cord wrapped around them, suggesting she had been restrained prior to her murder. I'm also moving her Christmas present out of sight. There you go.
Is that a giant Jigglypuff?
Oh, we got this. My nickname growing up from my horrible brother was Jigglypuff because my stomach jiggles when I walk.
Mm.
So she got me a weighted
Jigglypuff.
This bastard is huge. She could be used as a weapon.
Is that Winifred?
Oh, yeah, hold on. And then I got it when this is from Emily. And then I got matching the Sanderson sisters up there. Mom bought me matching stuffs. So hold on. So you can see them up there. And then I got a new sign from Devin that says apothecary shop,
Huh.
a cabinet of curiosities, tonics, potions, and antibiotics.
I love it.
And then I also got another thing for the wall. So I'm like, where am I gonna put all this shit? Um,
Who knows?
who knows? So also congratulations to Donnie. She just sent me a message. Her and her lovely beast of a man got married
Oh, I love that.
right before Christmas. Very happy for her. Sucks because her wedding dress was not the right size, but the dress that she chose was glamorous. I have to show that to you later.
Ended up with was perfect.
Absolutely. So, the following month, Rena returned to live with Funk, and the couple relocated to the lake house at Caravan Park. The relationship initially improved, but Rena left the following year again, leaving the children in his care once more.
Like, you know what he's capable of. Why do you do this?
If she only had a brain. Do 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 do.
Right.
On these occasions, Funk had no one to supervise and care for the girls. He temporarily placed them in the care of Gloucester Social Services.
Because that makes it so much better.
This is where he encountered his second victim,
Of course.
Rosemary Leeds, in early 1969, shortly after her 15th birthday, his soon-to-be second wife. Now, I'm saying second victim because I think it was more like a Stockholm Syndrome kind of situation. So, Rosemary Pauline West, maiden name Letts, was born November 29th, 53, met Funk while waiting for the same bus in Cheltenham. So we're going to call her Thorn.
Okay.
Okay. So initially Thorn was repulsed by Funk's unkempt appearance at 27 and deduced that he was a tramp.
Well,
And she quickly became faltered by the attention Funk continued to lavish on her over the following days, as he invariably sat alongside her at the same bus stop every day. Thorn twice refused to go on a date with Funk, but allowed him to accompany her home. Pause. This is where we bring up previous instances of fathers and grandfathers and everything. I talked to her every day and asked her out every day, and she kept saying no. That is not romantic. That is stalker behavior.
yeah.
We don't do that. No is a complete sentence.
No, it's a complete sentence.
He also extracted a degree of sympathy from her by claiming he and his two daughters had been abandoned by his wife, that he was left to care for them all by his lonesome, and that he's wished for more children.
Mm.
So he discovered that Thorn was working in a nearby bread shop a few days before their first encounter, or after their first encounter. Funk persuaded an unknown woman to enter the premises and present her with a gift, accompanied by an explanation that a man outside had asked her to present this gift to her. Minutes later, Funk entered the premises and asked Rose Thorn to accompany him on a date that evening, and she accepted.
I hate it. Thanks.
You guys are so adorable. He's just sitting there. Are you guys sending each other memes?
No.
Oh. Shortly thereafter, Thorn began a relationship with Funk, becoming a frequent visitor at the Lake House Caravan Park and a willing childminder to Charmaine and Anne Marie, who she noted were neglected and she initially treated with care and affection.
Yeah, because they needed it from somewhere.
On several occasions in the early days of their relationship, Thorn insisted that she and Funk would take the girls on excursions to gather wildflowers and go to the park.
Well,
Within weeks of her first meeting him, Thorn left her job at the bread shop in order to become a nanny to Charmaine and Anne-Marie. This decision was made with the agreement that Funk would provide her with sufficient money to give to her parents on Fridays to convince them she was still obtaining a salary at the shop.
obviously that didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least if it did, it was very short lived.
Right. So several months later, Thorn introduced Funk to her family, who were aghast at her daughter's choice and partner because he showed up and he did not.
I mean, can't blame them.
Nope. Funny enough, you're going to laugh at her mom's name. So Thorn's mother, Daisy,
Just keep it with the flower trend.
was unimpressed at Funk's arrogant behavior and correctly concluded that he was a pathological liar.
Well, some moms aren't wrong.
Nope. Her father, Billy, a diagnosed schizophrenic who is believed to have molested his daughter, vehemently disapproved of this relationship, threatening Funk directly and promising to call social services if he continued to date her. Because, mind you, she's still underage. Well, what we consider underage. Believe it or not, the age of consent overseas is like 16.
Depending on the country.
Depending on the country. So I was like disgusted when I was reading some of this stuff.
I mean, it's still disgusting because the age
Difference. Yeah. Terrible, horrible, no good. So Thorn's parents forbade her from continuing to date Funk, but she defied their wishes, prompting them to visit Gloucester Social Services to explain that their 15-year-old daughter was dating an older man.
I mean, that's right on par for most teenager.
Right.
The daddy, he loves me.
Mm-mm. It gets worse.
Of course it does. It always gets worse. We have a trend with this.
We do. They had begun to hear rumors that he started to pimp her out.
I mean, not surprising.
Nope. So, in response, Thorn was placed in a home for troubled teens in Cheltenham in August of 69 and only allowed to leave in supervised and controlled conditions. When allowed to return home to visit her parents at weekends, Thorn almost invariably took the opportunity to visit her love, Mr. Funk. On her 16th birthday, Thorn left the home for troubled teens to return to her parents. Funk at the time was serving a 30-day sentence for theft and unpaid fines.
I mean, you picked a real winner.
I know, seriously. So, upon Funk's release, Thorn left her parents' home to move into the Cheltenham flat Funk lived in. Shortly thereafter, Funk collected Charmaine and Anna Marie from social services. Her father, Billy, made one final effort to prevent his daughter from seeing Funk, and Thorn was examined by a police surgeon on February of 1970, who confirmed she was in fact pregnant.
Yep.
In response, Thorn was again placed into the care of the troubled teens home, but discharged on May 6th with the understanding she would terminate her pregnancy and return to her family.
Which was scandalous enough then.
Right. However,
Oh no.
Thorn opted to live with Funk, resulting in her father forbidding his daughter from ever again setting foot in his household.
Well, I mean,
That's true. However, this is why I'm under the huge thing of I'd rather you come home to me and admit that you failed in something than come home in a pine box.
right. No, I'm right there with you on that.
I mean, my dad was the one who told me that. He's like, I'd rather you come home from a failed relationship than have you come home in a pine box. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So, but 3 months later, the couple vacated the Cheltenham flat and relocated to the ground floor of their flat, a two-story house in Midland Road, Gloucester. So, October 17th, 1970, Thorn gave birth to their first child, a daughter that they named Heather Ann. However,
She did away with the flower names.
she did. However, even more scandalously,
Why is there always a however?
they said that Heather may have been sired by her father.
Well, alrighty then.
Because 2 months later, Funk was imprisoned for the theft of car tires and vehicle task disc. He remained imprisoned until June 24th, 71.
Okay.
As he served his 6.5 month sentence, Thorn, having just turned 17, looked after the three girls, being told to refer to Rose as their mother. According to middle sister Anna Marie, her and Charmaine were frequently subjected to criticism, beatings, and other forms of punishment throughout the time that they lived under her care. Although Anna Marie
Is it Will?
Although Anna Marie was generally submissive and prone to display emotion in response to the physical and mental hardships that she and her sister endured, Charmaine repeatedly infuriated Thorn by her stoic refusal to either cry or display any sign of grief or servitude, no matter how severely she was abused.
Wow.
Despite the years of neglect and abuse, Charmaine's spirit had not been broken, and she talked wistfully to Anna Marie of the belief that she held that her mummy will come and save her.
Mm.
Anna Marie later recollected her sister repeatedly antagonizing Thorn by making statements such as, "My real mummy wouldn't swear or shout at us," in response to Thorn's abusive language.
Well.
Mm. A childhood friend of Charmaine's named Tracy Giles had lived in the upper flat of the 25 Midland Road house, later recollected an incident in which she had encountered the family's flat, unannounced, only to see Charmaine naked, standing upon a chair, gagged, with her hands behind her back, with a belt, as Thorn stood alongside the child with a large wooden spoon in her hand.
Oh.
According to Giles, Charmaine had been calm and unconcerned.
Why did we not make any phone calls?
Well, this was before. So, in the late 70s, early 80s, that's when child abuse started to get noted more and more, that it was not allowed,
That's not right.
I know.
In any case.
However, it's worse.
Of course it does.
Anna Marie was watching, and her face was calm as well. So, hospital records reveal that Charmaine had received treatments for several puncture wounds to her left ankle in casualty unit of the Gloucester Royal Hospital, March 28th of 71. The incident was explained away by Thorn having resulted from a household accident.
Mm-hmm.
Thorn is believed to have killed Charmaine shortly before Funk's prison release, June 24th of 71. Yeah, I know.
I hate it here.
I know. So, she is known to have taken Charmaine, Anne Marie, and Heather to visit Funk on June 15th. It is believed to be on or very shortly after that date, Charmaine was murdered by Thorn. Forensic odontology, which is a forensic dentist, um, or like they examine the dental records,
Yeah.
confirmed that Charmaine had died while Funk was still locked up. Further testimony from Tracy Giles, her mother Shirley, corroborated the fact that Charmaine had been murdered before Funk was released on June 24th, because that was the last time anyone had seen her out and about.
Right.
In her last testimony at Thorne's trial, Shirley stated that her family had lived in the upper flat of the Midland Road and that her daughters had been playmates of Charmaine and Anna Marie. She stated that after her family had vacated the upper flat, on one day in June, she had brought Tracy to visit Charmaine, only Tracy to be told by Thorne she's gone to live with her mother and bloody good riddance. And Tracy began to weep.
Because by that point, she was already dead.
Right. So, um, before, right after that, her mother was very adamant that Funk was still in prison on the occasion.
Because, of course.
As with the Giles family, Thorne explained Charmaine's disappearance to others who inquired about her whereabouts, claiming that Rena had called and taken her eldest daughter to live with her in Bristol.
If she took the eldest, why wouldn't she take the others?
Right. She informed staff at Charmaine's primary school that the child had moved with her mother to London, and when Funk was released from prison June 24th, he replied to Anna Marie's concerns for her sister's whereabouts by claiming her mother had collected Charmaine and returned to Scotland. So, just to let you know, there is a book by Anna Marie called Out of the Shadows.
Okay.
She recollected that when she asked why her mother had collected Charmaine but not her, Funk replied, "She wouldn't want you. You're the wrong color."
Wow.
Yep. Charmaine's body was initially stowed in the coal cellar of the Midland Roadhouse until Fred was released from prison.
Jesus.
After he was released, he later buried her naked body in the yard close to the back door of the flat and remained adamant that he had not dismembered her. The autopsy has suggested that the body had been severed at the hip. This damage may have been caused by a building work that Funk conducted on the property in 76. By, breaking up pieces of concrete or pieces of, mud or anything. Yeah. So, several bones, particularly, I'm always going to mispronounce this word, patellae, P-A-T-E-L-L-A-E, which is the patellas,
Ah.
phalanges, finger, wrist, toe, and ankle bones. I think that's patella. Now I can't remember.
I think the patella is the kneecaps.
Yep, kneecap. Sorry. Kneecaps, not fingers. Phalanges are fingers. I knew it started with a P. I got that point right. They were missing from her skeleton, leading to the speculation the missing parts have been retained as keepsakes. This proved to be a distinctive discovery in all of the autopsies of the victims who were exhumed.
That's disgusting.
That is so disgusting. Rena maintained sporadic contact with her children on each occasion she and Fred had separated. She's also known to have visited the Moorcart cottage to inquire to her children's whereabouts and welfare in the latter half of August of 71. But Funk's sister-in-law, Christine, later recollected that Rena was depressed and extremely anxious about her children's welfare. She was super concerned
Right.
because she hadn't heard from one of her daughters in a long time.
Yeah. Well, there's reason behind that, apparently.
So, being provided with Funk's address, Rena sought to confront her ex-husband, likely to discuss or demand custody of her daughters.
Right.
By getting the address, this was the last time that Rena was ever seen alive. So, when her body was discovered, a short length of metal tubing was found with her remains, leaving an equal possibility that she had been restrained and subjected to SA prior to her murder.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm. Rena's body was extensively dismembered, placed into plastic bags, and buried close to a cluster of trees known as Yew Tree Coppice at Letterbox Field, about 1 mile from Much Markel. Letterbox Field was used for several dumping sites for a couple of different killers. So it was kind of like the killing fields in Texas, which I'm still researching. It's almost 30 pages at this point.
Yeah, that's it's a large dive.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to take a break for that because I got depressed.
Yeah.
So, January 29th of 72, Funk and Thorn tied the knot.
Of course they did.
So, the ceremony took place at the Gloucester Register office, with Funk incorrectly describing himself upon the marriage certificate as a bachelor and not previously married, because at this point, he's still married to his previous wife.
Yep.
He's not even divorced at this point. Several months later, with Thorne pregnant with her second child, the couple moved from Midland Road to an address nearby, 25 Cromwell Street. Initially, the 3-story home was rented from the council. So council houses are the ones that I sent you on Instagram.
Right.
Where they're like Section 8 housing. And they're really affordable. They're not really nice, but you're allowed to decorate them in any way that you want. And then they come and inspect the house. And if it's
all up to code.
Right. Initially, to facilitate the Flintstones purchasing property from the council, many of the upper floor rooms were initially converted to bedsits to supplement the household income. So bedsits are kind of like renting rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So they have like a hot plate and a mini fridge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
To maintain a degree of privacy for his own family, Funk installed a cooker and a wash basin on the first floor landing in order that their lodgers need not enter the ground floor where the West family lived. Only he and his family were permitted to access the garden on the property. So they had the main floor where they lived.
Yeah.
Then they had the second floor where the subletters lived. And then they had the third floor and subsequent attic.
Yeah.
Okay. On June 1st, Thorne gave birth to their second daughter. And they decided to name her May June. Not spelt May, it was M-A-E.
Right.
Which I said earlier, Mae West, get it?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was super like catchy. Okay. Shortly after giving birth to the second child, Thorne began to work as a prostitute once more. She was operating an upstairs room in sublet rooms and advertising her services in a local contact magazine.
That's disgusting.
I mean, we support all forms of shoes in this household.
No, not that part.
Right.
Everything so far.
Yeah. Everything else so far. So, Funk encouraged Thorne to seek clients in Gloucester's West Indian community through these advertisements. In addition to her prostitution, Thorne engaged in casual sex with both male and female lodgers within their household, and individuals Funk encountered via his work. She bragged to several people that no man or woman could completely satisfy her.
Or maybe you just haven't met the right person yet.
Right. Sometimes it takes like a good person to come into your life to completely satisfy your wants and needs.
Exactly.
When engaging in sexual relations with women, Thorn would gradually increase the level of brutality to which she subjected her partner with acts such as partially suffocating them or inserting increasingly large into her partner's body.
I'm over here silently gagging.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm sorry.
Like, I'm not gonna yuck somebody's yum, but there's a whole lot of yuck to this story.
There is definitely a lot of yuck to this story.
So much yuck.
So much yuck. So, if the woman resisted or expressed any pain or fear, this would gradually excite Thorn, who would ask, "Aren't you woman enough to take it?" Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
Hmm. I know. To many of these women, it became apparent that Thorn and her husband, who regularly participated in her threesomes, took a particular pleasure from seeking to take women beyond their sexual limits, typically via bondage, S&M, as the family openly admitted to taking a particular pleasure from any form of sex involving a strong measure of dominance, pain, or violence.
Which again, like, not yucking people's yum, but there's a limit
There's
and
definitely a limit.
patience.
Hmm.
All of which were not being utilized, obviously.
I'm responding back to your sister.
Oh, I'm like, when are you typing?
She said, I love her setup, but that pantry just called me poor in at least two languages.
Oh, yeah.
I shared it for the recipe mainly, but I want that pantry so bad.
Just the organization, too.
Oh, God. The glass jars. So, of course, they have to cater to these fetishes, which we don't shame here, but this is bad. You have to do it
Right.
safely. So, they amassed a large collection of bondage and restraining devices, magazines, and photographs, later expanding this collection to include videos depicting bestiality and graphic CP. She controlled the family finances, where Funk was giving her his paychecks. So no longer was he controlling the finances, she was.
Mm.
The room Thorne used for prostitution was known throughout the West household as Rose's room, and had several hidden peepholes, allowing Funk, who was a voyeur, to watch her entertain her clients. I know.
Not my yum, but
Very yuck.
some people are.
I dated a guy who was a voyeur, and I dumped him right after I found out.
Right. It's not for everybody.
Nope. I was like, that stays in the house between us, nowhere else. He also not only had the peepholes, he installed baby monitors so he could see and hear what was going on. Her room included a private bar and a red light outside to warn when Thorne was not to be disturbed. In turn, Thorne carried the only key to that room around her neck, and Funk installed a separate doorbell to the household, which her clients were instructed to ring whenever they visited.
I mean, having a doorbell installed, it makes sense.
Right. And having the only key, I get it.
Right.
Much of the money earned from her prostitution was spent on home improvements and expanding the house.
Oh, that. I mean, that's a good way to spend the money.
Right. By 77, Thorne's father had come to tolerate his daughter's marriage and develop a grudging respect for Funk maintaining the household. Together, him and Funk opened a cafe that they named the Green Lantern, which was soon insolvent. When Billy, her father, discovered his daughter's prostitution, he would also visit and have sex with his daughter. Yep.
Nope. Mm-mm.
I know. By 83, she had given birth to 8 children, at least 3 of whom were conceived by clients.
I hate it.
Funk willingly accepted these children as his own, falsely informing them that the reason their skin was darker or different than his was because his great-grandmother was a black woman. That's not how that works.
No. But also, that time period, because they were married,
Mm-hmm.
his name would have automatically gone on the birth certificate.
Right. Despite whose baby it might have been.
Right.
When each of the children reached the age of 7, they were assigned to numerous daily chores to perform in the house. They were rarely allowed to socialize outside, unless either of the parents were present, and had to follow strict guidelines imposed by their parents. Otherwise, severe punishment, which was almost always physical, was the penalty for not conforming to the rules. The children feared being recipients of violence from their parents, and the vast majority were inflicted by Thorn, but only occasionally by Funk. The violence was sometimes irrational, indiscreet, or just inflicted for Rose's gratification. She always took great care not to mark the children's faces or hands in these assaults.
Because that shit's visible.
Right. So, firstly, Heather, and subsequent younger brother Stephen, who was born in 73, ran away from home, but both returned to Cromwell Street after weeks of alternately sleeping rough or staying with friends, and both were beaten severely when they returned home. I should have done something else. I had like 3 other cases saved. I should have done something less graphic for your birthday. I apologize.
It's fine.
You say that now. My birthday's coming up soon too. All right.
Different hat, bitch.
Damn it. So between 72 and 92, the children were admitted to the accident and emergency department of local royal hospitals a total of 31 times. What?
Oh, no. Dakota has to move, so.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So, sorry.
It's fine.
The injuries were explained as accidents and never reported to social services, and they were just sent home. On one occasion, as Stephen was mopping the floor with a cloth, Thorn accidentally stepped on the bowl of water he had been using. In response, Thorn hit the boy over the head with the bowl and then repeatedly kicked him in the head and chest and shouted, "You did that on purpose, you little swine."
The hell?
On another occasion...
totally did that.
Right.
On purpose.
No, he didn't. But on another occasion, Thorn became furious about a single missing kitchen utensil, one. Then grabbed a knife she had been using to cut a slab of meat, repeatedly inflicting scour marks on May's chest until her ribcage was covered with light knife wounds. All the while she screamed, "No, Mommy, no."
Oh my God.
Even Funk occasionally became the recipient of his wife's violent rage outbursts.
Oh, wow.
August of 74, Thorn chased after Funk with a carving knife. Funk was able to slam shut the door of the room in which he had run to, as Thorn lunged at him with a knife, resulting in the knife embedding itself in the door. 3 of Thorn's fingers slid down the blade, almost severing them from her hand.
Jesus Christ.
In response, she responded calmly, look at you, what you've done, fella. You've got to take me to the hospital now. In
She's the
September,
one that was holding the knife.
I know, I know. In September of 72, they led 8-year-old Anna Marie to the cellar of Cromwell Street, where the child was forced to undress, with Thorn tearing her dress from her body upon noting the child's hesitation.
Yeah.
She was restrained before Fred raped her, and Rose's active encouragement, Funk essayed her, and Thorn egged him on. After the essay, Thorn followed Anna Marie to the bathroom and handed her a sanitary towel, explaining, "I'm sorry, everybody does it to every girl. It's a father's job to do this. Don't worry, and don't say anything to anyone."
What the fuck?
Yep. Making clear that these essays would continue, Funk and Thorn then threatened the child with a severe beating if they ever received word that she divulged the abuse she endured at their hands.
That poor baby.
It gets worse.
Of course it does.
Thorn occasionally essayed Anna Maria herself, and later took extreme gratification in degrading her with such acts as binding her to various items of furniture before encouraging Funk to rape her, and forced her to perform household chores while wearing sexual devices and a miniskirt.
That's just like consenting adults is one thing.
Right, like the topless maids.
Right.
That are so nice on TikTok and everything like that, because I had questions.
Right.
Nicest people. But when it's children,
that's a very huge line.
No, that is a big line. We do not cross that. Absolutely not.
Exactly.
So from the age of 13, Fred forced Anna Maria to prostitute herself within the household, with her clients being informed that Anna Marie was 16, which is the age of consent in the UK.
Oh my god.
Thorn was always present in the room when these acts occurred to ensure that Anna Marie did not reveal her true age.
Of course not.
On one occasion, when Anna Maria was 13 or 14, Thorn took her to a local pub, insisting she drink several glasses of barley wine. Several hours later, Funk arrived at the pub to collect them. Once they had left, Anna Maria was bundled into her father's van and beaten by Thorn, who asked her, "Do you think you could be my friend?" before she was essayed by her father and stepmother. October 72, they hired 17-year-old Caroline Owens as their children's nanny. They had picked her up one night on a secluded country road as she hitchhiked from Tewkesbury to Cinderford, having visited her boyfriend. Learning that she had disliked her stepfather, she was looking for a job. They offered her part-time employment as a nanny to the 3 children in their household, with the promise that she would drive home each Tuesday, or be driven home each Tuesday. Several days later, she moved into the Cromwell Street house.
Because she was trying to find any way to get out of that house.
Right, which I understand. At the point in this point in time, which was the early 70s, hitchhiking was super common. Like we talked about with the Green River Killer.
Mm-hmm.
It was very well known, and people did that a lot. So when she moved into Anna Maria's room, she was super withdrawn. She wouldn't talk to people. She wouldn't associate. She was just there.
Right.
So Thorn, this was around the time that Thorn started to prostitute even more, explained to Owens that she worked as a masseuse when the younger woman inquired about the steady stream of men visiting her.
Yeah. Yeah, you could call it a masseuse.
Right. I mean,
somebody gets a happy ending.
Right. Sorry. According to Owens, Fred also claimed to be skilled in performing abortions should she ever need a service. Owens also noted Fred talked about sex almost all the time. Her suspicions as to his sexual overtones were further heightened when Funk boasted that many of the women he claimed to have performed abortions upon were so overjoyed that he would offer them their sexual services as a reward.
What?
Yep, I know.
Mm.
When Owens herself became the recipient of their overt sexual advances, she announced her intentions to leave the house and return home to her father.
Right.
Knowing her habits of hitchhiking along the A40 between Cinderford and Tewkesbury, they formulated a plan to abduct her for their shared gratification.
I'm so disgusted.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But at least we're getting this out of the way and we don't ever have to discuss it again.
This is true.
Um, so they later admitted to the specific intent of abducting her with essay and likely murder of her. But his initial incentive was to determine whether his wife would be willing to at least assist him in a kidnapping.
Hmm.
On December 6th of 72, they lured Owens into their vehicle with an apology for the way that they had been conducting themselves and offer her a lift to her house.
She never made it home, did she?
No.
Of course not. They
Initially,
never do.
Owens believed that the couple had been sincere in their apologies and obliged, believing she had simply mistaken their earlier intentions. Thorn, 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 Thorn joined her in the back seat with the explanation she just wanted to have a girls' chat as Fred drove her to her house. Shortly thereafter, Thorn began to feel her up as Funk questioned whether she had had sex with her boyfriend that evening. When Owens began to protest, Funk stopped the car and referred to her as a bitch and punched her into unconsciousness before he and Thorn bound and gagged her with a scarf and duct tape. In her statement to the police later, she stated that at the Cromwell Street house, she was given a drugged cup of tea to drink, then again gagged and subjected to prolonged SA from Thorn and Funk. At one stage, Funk remarked that her lady bits were unusual and then hit her genitals with a leather belt.
The fuck?
When she screamed, Thorn smothered her with a pillow and restrained her about the neck before performing oral sex on her. Quickly realizing the gravity of her situation, she stopped resisting their assaults and just lay there.
Right, because at that point, it's just go ahead and get it over with. And
Right. Which they didn't like people like that. They wanted them to fight back.
right.
The
And
fall-
so when she realized that, she's like, I'm gonna just lay here and they'll go away faster.
Right. So the next day, when one of the children heard their nanny screaming, they knocked on the door and Funk threatened that he and his wife would keep her locked up in the cellar and allow his friends to abuse her. He used a lot of derogatory comments of their skin color, so I'm not going to repeat that. To abuse her, and when they had finished, he would bury her body beneath the paving stones of Gloucester. He then claimed to have killed hundreds of young girls, adding that Owens was primarily brought to the house for his wife's pleasure.
I hate it.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm trying to go through this as quickly as possible because right now we're only halfway through. I'm going to pause it and we'll pick it up later in the week and finish it because this is a heavy topic.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. I like the meme you just sent. Or your sister just sent. Not gonna lie, the age I'm turning this year sounds a little serious and I don't like it. It lightens the mood.
Yes.
Definitely lighten the mood. So he and Thorn then calmly asked her to reconsider working as their nanny, and she saw a plan start to form in her head, and she agreed. She said, yeah, I'll definitely come back. So she vacuumed the house to indicate her belief in becoming an extended member of the family. Later in the day, she escaped from a laundromat that she and Thorn had entered and returned home to her family. So she was at their house for 2 days. And they kept her under lock and key for 2 days. And so she saw a point in leaving by saying, yeah, no problem. I'll be the kid's nanny. I'll go back to my duties. Vacuum, started cleaning the house, went to the laundromat, which was like down the street, and then booked it.
Don't blame her.
I don't either. Like,
I would have too.
seriously. So her mother immediately reported the ordeal to the police, and they were arrested and charged with assault, indecent assault, bodily harm, and rape. Not even kidnapping. They weren't even charged with kidnapping.
Because she agreed to do a job for them. So
Right.
it would be a little harder to prove kidnapping.
Right. So it was tried at the Gloucester Magistrates Court, which is kind of like the county courthouse in the
Mm-hmm.
States. So on January 12th of 73, but by this date, she had decided she would not face the ordeal of testifying in court. All charges pertaining to the SA were dropped. But the couple had to plead guilty to the reduced charges of indecent assault and causing bodily harm, and were each fined £50, and they were allowed to walk free from court.
I hate it.
So, of course, she did too, as do we. We hate this case. So when she heard the news, she tried to attempt suicide.
Poor dear.
Mm-hmm. So 3 months after this assault trial, they committed their first actual act of murder.
Because they're like, what else can we get away with now?
Right. So Linda Gow, 19 years old, the couple became acquainted through a male lodger with them in 73.
Mm-hmm.
So Linda regularly visited Cromwell Street and engaged in affairs with male lodgers. On April 19th, she moved into their home, and about April 20th, other tenants were told that she was told to leave the household after she had hit one of the kids.
I mean, that's fair.
Right? Considering the fact that they used to beat their children, I don't think that's what happened. The story...
But I mean, there's a level of beating when it was too much, too far.
Right. So the story was later repeated to her mother when she contacted them to inquire about where her daughter had gone. However,
I hate the howevers.
her body was dismembered, and when it was found, the jaw was completely wrapped in adhesive and surgical tape to silence her screams. And 2 small tubes had likely been inserted into her nasal cavities to allow her to breathe. Long sections of string and sections of knotted fabric were also discovered with her remains. Linda had likely been suspended from holes carved into wooden beams supporting the ceiling of the cellar. Funk later admitted that he had devised for the purpose of suspending his victims' bodies, and likely died
I
of...
absolutely hate that.
Right. She had likely died of suffocation or strangulation. So her body, as it was dismembered, was missing 5 cervical vertebrae, which you and I both know that there is a ligament in the spine that connects all of the vertebrae together.
Right.
It is very hard to remove that. The kneecaps and numerous numerous phalanges. The patella, numerous finger bones, were buried in an inspection pit beneath the garage. From their later investigations, police and forensic experts concluded that the victims found in the cellar of the Cromwell Street house had been murdered in this location, and like Linda, each had been dismembered here as well. 5 victims in total were buried in the cellar at Cromwell Street between November 73 and April of 75. And that's where we're going to leave it for right now. And instead of just doing this in one fell swoop, I'm just going to post 2 separate ones for this one, because this guy and this wife is...
Well, I mean, and especially because we got started over an hour ago. That it's already
a lot.
Yeah.
We're only 10 pages in.
Right.
I haven't even gotten to the victims. Like, this is the first victim, yes, but like, we've done the living victims. This is the first deceased victim.
No, the stepdaughter.
Well, the stepdaughter, but I haven't gotten to her yet.
No, okay.
Yeah. I mean, like, I got to her, but I haven't gotten to her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was more of a kind of backstory.
Yeah. Yeah, we're doing this in a 2-parter. I originally didn't want to do a 2-parter, but this is too
so
much. So much. And I mean, if you guys have a problem with it, deal with it. Because I hated researching this. I know Rachel hates hearing it.
Yeah.
I hated doing it. So.
All right. So we will come back for part 2.
For part 2. I hated today. Good God.
I did too.
I hope you have a better birthday than dealing with my punk ass in this situation.
Thanks. I'm going to try. I'm probably going to go stuff my face into some cake.
Oh my God, yes. Eat some cake for me.
I will.
Okay. Stay feral.
Bite the hand, guys, and stay safe.
And we'll talk to you guys in a few days, because this is not done yet.
This is some fuckery.
This is some fuckery. Okay,
bye.
You've been listening to the Pandemonium Witches podcast, and this episode was chopped in half. Return back to next week to finish listening to our feral story. I'm Kat.
I'm Rachel.
And we're the Pandemonium. We'll see you all next time.